It's like a big enchilada. Like, you go to these taquerias and you go, I want it mojado style. I want it mojado style. I want it mojado style. That's like when you get, like, you know, red sauce or green all over it. So I'm going to take a little bite out of this and see how she is. Okay. The warm enchilada sauce with the cheese and the sour cream is really good, gang.
Hey everybody, Roger here. I want to talk to you guys today about something I've been kind of holding off on until I had a lot more information, and there was a little bit more concrete information. I think we pretty much solidified a lot of stuff with it, minus a couple of things. Let's go ahead and get started. We have this Austin serial bomber. Forget the kid's name, but anyways, he young white 23-year-old male who police at this point, this is probably the only criticism I have of the officers on this case in particular is, and again, it's probably all definition at this point, but I do classify this as a terroristic act. They are saying that he is a troubled young man. That's all that was indicated. You know, off of the actions, their evidence, the footage, and the 25-minute manifesto that he made before he died. I personally do not believe. You know, I understand the general terms of terrorism. You're terrorizing people in a certain way here, and these people were terrorized. The city of Austin was terrorized. I'm sorry, but the guy is a terrorist. Local homegrown terrorist. And there's two things that I do have criticisms on, and these both again are minor criticisms based off of my own opinion. I'm pretty sure there's other weights and measurements in regards to how they determine these things. So the second criticism that I have is initially when the first three suspects were two killed, I believe, and two others were critically injured. My other issue was that they immediately started penning this as a racist crime, somebody who must have been racist, since the first couple of people, I think the first four were both, I believe, Latino and black. All I know is that they were the majority of them were all of them were minority initially. But it ended up not being a hate crime, whatever. That was definitely very annoying to hear when that first came out. It's like, you know, why do you have to pin it as that? You don't have much evidence. All you have is the very little information that you have going around. We just found out that during the happenings here, that there was surveillance videos being handed over to the police from Fry's Electronics, and then later on at a UPS or a FedEx place. But again, these preassumed issues that it was a hate crime, that really bothered me. You know, it doesn't make any sense. You know, let the reasoning surface. I mean, okay, you call it, at that point you had called it a hate crime against minorities, and you were really leaning on that. But when it comes time for you gathering all the evidence, you're not calling him a terrorist, but it leans that way. The hypocrisy doesn't work for me. Anyways, those are the two, I'm going to say they're minor issues that I had with this case, but I would say overall, these officers did, and investigators and forensics experts, the people who actually reconfigured the bombs that were used in the initial explosions back together, they all did an excellent job as far as documenting, running off of the evidence, you know, and moving with it. They weren't just letting it sit there. They did their jobs. You guys ought to be commended for that. Who knows how long this whole scenario would have lasted if it wasn't for a lot of those very behind the scenes actions. I mean, you guys used what is that, triangle GPS or something like that, anyways, where it pinpoints his locations, and yeah, I mean, great job. So now we get into a lot of other things here. You know, he's dead, obviously. I think a lot of people know this now. This case wasn't as widely covered as it's been foreshadowed over with both the Maryland shooter, which still really hasn't gained much national attention as the Parkland shooting did.
The men and women I've worked with for almost 40 years, we know how to keep America safe.
But this morning, the young 17-year-old girl who was shot actually was unfortunately taken off life support. So definitely my condolences to her family and friends. It's so there ended up being 2 victims in that shooting. So very sad scenario there. But regardless of highlights and info like that, not highlights, I'm sorry, horrible word to use. You know what I mean by that when I say it, though. Regardless of that, the key points in this whole case right now is there is a 25-minute manifesto that this young man ended up filming. He apparently had no bad background. He was a homeschooled student, had 3 sisters. A couple of neighbors who always gave good word to them, and yeah, it's just a horrible scenario. I'm glad he's caught. I'm glad nobody else is going to get hurt. It is assumed that there are no other bombs at this point, and that's a good thing, obviously. I hope there's no more. The city of Austin can now rest easy for a bit. But again, you don't define this guy as a child or a young man with a past history of, you know, I don't know what it was. Maybe he was picked on or he hated the world. He had a very empty soul, according to a lot of the articles I've read and the videos I've watched about him. So he's had a very difficult life, apparently, internally. His friends and family assumed otherwise. They were very Christian, or religious. I'm not sure if it's Christian, but they were very religious people, and so no indication was there. But here's the thing, you know, you can have all these problems, but to choose, and you can have people hating you and beating up on you and having internal thoughts of, oh, I hate the world and this and that, but those are just thoughts. I mean, if you're really going to be that weak and let something like that take over, you know, when it's, you know, we all go through something like that in our lives, you know, but you chose the weak route. You decided instead to go ahead and murder people. You decided instead to take matters into your own hands and just because you hated life, you took it out on other people and robbed them of theirs. You're a disgusting man, a very disgusting individual. I feel sorry for your family. I feel really sorry for the victims in all this. You know, I saw some of the photos that were published of the first and the second victim, and you know, the first victim looked like a very happy man. What bothers me is that somebody could just callously do something like this. And again, this all comes down to the simple fact that things will happen. You're not ever going to eliminate problems in the world. You're not ever going to eliminate mass shootings. You're not ever going to eliminate people that want to fulfill a fantasy, whether it's a school shooting or a bombing. You're never going to get rid of these. There's different circumstances in life that we're never going to catch every single thing. This is why this whole thing tomorrow with the March 24th, March for Our Lives makes absolutely no sense. Again, I can see your guys' argument. I can see your guys' reasoning. But when you're dealing with thinking that there's such things as absolutes, at least in terms of society, and thinking you can just stop everything, it's not going to happen. You have to and you're young, but most people, including adults, have to grow up and get used to the fact that the world is a difficult place to live in. It's always going to have these obstacles. Gosh, I mean, like right now, we're already dealing with LA doing the unthinkable and making it illegal to live in your RV. I mean, that's just, you're fining people for being poor. So anyways, I mean, it's just how ridiculous this world has gotten. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that, I mean, I personally think these officers, Austin officers, did an excellent job. And when you start looking at you know, everything they did from start to finish with this case, it did an amazing job. I don't agree with the first two things that I mentioned about the racism or the hate crime, whatever, and not calling him a terrorist. I do believe that the redefinition of terrorist is noticeable here. And yeah, what are you guys' thoughts? Oh, and that's another thing. This is, a lot of people always say that it's never white people that get captured, that they're always taken alive. This is 2 in a row. We've got the kid in Maryland who was taken down by a patrol, a deputy in the school, I think. And then you have this young man here taken out by the officers. Well, actually, he took himself out, but he was shot at. His vehicle, his old Nissan Pathfinder, had bullet holes in it, so they engaged. Had nothing to do with black or white. Had nothing to do with being racist or anything. 2 white people in a week in a nationally focused on event were both taken out. So again, let's stop playing this race card thing. It's really sad that we're even dividing. Let's just look at the scenarios of the individuals and go from there. All right. Hopefully, what are you guys' thoughts? Hope you guys like this video or hate it. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want, and we'll go from there. Hope you guys all have a great morning. Bye.
1, 2, 3, go. Hmm.